Now I've got my spheres cloned onto my text, and I've changed my text back to a really thin font so that my clones are all quite close together. Actually, what I might do while I'm in my text, I might just space the letters a little further apart. There's a spacing setting, horizontal spacing. I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of cloned objects in here, and to prevent them from colliding with each other too much, I'm going to extend my spacing. I can come back and change this later if I want to. But let's move on now to our rigid body dynamics. So with our cloner, what we're going to do is we're going to animate this end value, which will get our spheres drawing onto our text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the animation now. So I'm going to go to frame 0 on my timeline, and with my cloner selected, I'm going to set that end value down to 0. And I'm going to click the little wee dot next to end, which will turn red, showing me that I've set a keyframe for that function. Now I'm going to get my text to draw on over maybe 3 seconds, which is 75 frames, because we've got 25 frames a second. So I'm going to go to frame 75 on my timeline. I'm going to set the end value on my cloner up to 100%, and I'm going to set a keyframe for it. So now if I hit rewind on my timeline and hit the play button, I should see the MoGraph clones appearing. Now that's quite quick. You may want to choose to set yours a little slower if you want to. You might set your other keyframe later on in the timeline. I'm just going to stick with this for now. Okay, so that's got our text drawing on, our clones appearing. Now I want to set up the rigid bodies so that they actually interact with each other, they collide with each other, and we get that real sort of physical look going on. So I'm going to select my sphere, which is my clone object, and I'm going to add a rigid body tag to it. So remember, tags in Cinema4D are like effects or functions, and we can select them from the top right hand of our objects list. So I'm going to select my sphere, go to tags, and in the simulation tags, I'm going to make this sphere a rigid body. So this means it'll collide with other rigid bodies, and it will be affected by things like gravity. And because it's cloned, all the cloned spheres will also be rigid bodies. So now it's a rigid body. Let's rewind, hit play, and see what happens. Okay, that's quite exciting. So as the clones appear, and I've got quite a lot of them, they're all hitting each other and bouncing off with a lot of force and flying off all over the place. So at the moment, nothing is keeping them in place. They're just appearing and colliding with each other and flying off. It's quite exciting. Okay, we want them to stick to the text though. So what we need to do is we need to use a function called follow, which tells the clones, even though you're rigid bodies, bounce off each other, but try and follow this shape if you can. So if we select that rigid body tag that's on the spheres, and if we go to the force tab, the top field there is called follow position. So that means these dynamic objects will try and follow the object that they're cloned onto. Now if I set a value of about 2, let's try 2 for a start, and then rewind and hit play, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's really damped down a lot of that crazy action that was going on, but these clones, they're still kind of settling. They're not really sticking to the text. So what I can do, and the good thing about this is I can leave the timeline playing. I can leave it playing, and I can adjust the values, and I can see them change as I adjust them. So if I just leave that playing, if I change my follow position to maybe 5 and hit enter on the keyboard, and now you should see that they maybe stick a little bit better. Now I'm noticing as well, I think I've got too many spheres because I can't really read the text. You may have less, you may have more. I'm going to go back to the cloner, and I'm going to change the step distance. Remember, that's how far along the curve we go before we add another clone. I'm going to change that to maybe 8 centimeters. I think I've probably still got a little too many there. I'm going to choose I'll try maybe 10. I'm going to leave it at 10 for now. And the other thing I've got is my clones, I want them to stick a little bit stronger to that text, see if I can sort of make the words a little more legible. So I'm going to go back to that rigid body tag on the sphere, and I'm just going to bump that follow position up to maybe 9. Let's try that. Okay, so my cloned spheres, they seem to be sticking reasonably well to that text, and you'll notice now as well they're colliding with each other. They're bouncing off each other, but they're trying to stick and clump together on that text. So we're starting to form that text, which is great.